Some of the features of Adobe. If you have trouble seeing whatever's on the screen, there's an option for you to indicate a full screen view in the right-hand corner, and that is depicted by four arrows facing out, and you just click that and it enlarges your screen. If you have questions as we go or have troubles, if you could just type those into the chat box. Stephanie Martinez, another colleague of mine, is going to help monitor the chat box and make sure that all of your questions are answered. Also, in the file pod below the chat box, there's a ton of resources there for you, and as we go today, I'll try to be sure to point out all of those and how they fit into today's presentation. The PowerPoint handout is titled PBS for Families, and that is indicated after the title. It says PowerPoint handout. And most of the other resources I'll review as we go. I'm Devin Minch, and today we are talking about PBS for families. And so the objectives that Stephanie and I came up with today is a process for your school to identify ways to engage your families and have the opportunity to share and learn strategies among each other today. So we'll be going over some of the rationale, research, and theory, and then getting into some resources to help you support these strategies within your school and district. The theory that supports family engagement is one of Epstein's called overlapping spheres of influence, which just talks about the need to make environments that students come into contact with more consistent and which helps students navigate those environments more successfully. So the more that we can make schools more home-like and communities more school-like and vice versa, and more of those environments alike and similar, the easier it is for students to navigate those contexts. As far as the research and theory, what's summarized on this slide is 30 years of research that's found that family engagement and family school partnerships and educators and parents working together is really important for student outcomes. And that ranges from K to 12, and that ranges across student outcomes from academic outcomes, behavioral outcomes, social emotional learning outcomes. So if you're interested in those specific studies, we can get you those very easily. Well, I didn't want to spend too much time on that because I think everyone's pretty familiar with that, and that's not where we need to spend a lot of our time. But the last point on the slide I wanted to emphasize that every dollar invested in parental participation characterized by high quality, long-lasting family school relationship offers a possible $7 return to society. And I think that's something that we need to think more about when we talk about investing resources in our school building to engaging families and communities to support student learning. So when we talk about family engagement, we really want to be inclusive of adults who support children that may not be what we typically think of as their parent. So it could be an extended family member, or somebody's primary caregiver. The community organizations and groups that support student learning can be thought of as those that not only provide and have an invested resource to provide financial resources to schools, but those that also have knowledge and skills and connections to help our learners in our buildings. So thinking about businesses and organizations that might have a need for some of our student skills, especially at secondary, and how we can engage in mutually beneficial relationships. The engagement here, I know that image is blocking some of the text there. The intent here is just to really make sure that we're moving beyond just getting our focus for getting parents in the school building, right? So that's one piece or one aspect or one way to think of family school partnerships is families' presence in our buildings, at our events, and at our conferences and in our meetings. But ultimately, we want families to support student learning and student well-being and student development. And that can happen in many ways. It can happen through conversations with educators. It can happen in homes. And it can happen in a lot of different environments and in a lot of different ways that may or may not require their physical attendance and presence in our buildings. So we're talking about all of the ways that we work together to support families and communicate with them and help them to support student learning. Again, this is just a funny image to emphasize that really when we talk about family engagement in PBS, we're really wanting more than just volunteers and donations. I know that oftentimes when we think of how our families can support PBS implementation, we think of how their resources can support our reward and recognition systems. And that may be one way that they can contribute and support the process, but there are a lot of other ways that they can be engaged in our systems and support student learning beyond just those donations. So that's just a funny little image and graphic to drive that point home. Also, it's more than just adapting the language. So this is an image that is intended to demonstrate the importance of not only providing information to families, but really ensuring their understanding of the information. So sometimes we just send home information and kind of check off our list that we put it on our website or we sent the note home. But going a step further and making sure that our families understood the information that was